Hey, brother.
Hey, Al.
How's it going?
You kind of scared me.
Sorry, I didn't mean to just jump right into it.
Yeah.
Well, welcome everyone back to another episode of Siblings in Crime. I'm Allie Rossell.
And I'm Blake Murphy.
And just as it sounds, we are siblings who love true crime.
Yes, love it.
As always, please, if you haven't, like, subscribe, follow. We're Siblings in Crime Pod on every platform. I will say, last week we didn't specifically mention Instagram. We are plateaued at 75, and we got 7 new followers on Instagram. So you guys are freaking awesome for breaking us out of that plateau a little bit. But, of course, rookie numbers. So we're always looking for progress there.
Yep, exactly.
But thank you for the support.
And we're also looking for suggestions on future podcast episodes. So please submit your request, send us a DM, and we'll put it in the queue.
Yeah, and one thing that I thought was fun is that we had a friend message us saying that she would like to hear people's personal experiences. And I feel like that's so scary. So close calls, if you have any close calls or personal stories that you like to share, of course, we're happy to read them as well. But obviously, I imagine that's a personal experience. But if anyone's had any not so fun experiences, we would love to hear your stories. And like Blake said, any case suggestions. I personally love conspiracies. I know that everyone has different preferences. So if you have one that you like, let us know.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, before we get started, as always, how was your week?
My week was good. Just let me think. You go first. I can't even think about my week right now.
This week was pretty uneventful for me. We were supposed to go to Minnesota. We didn't get to run Grandma's Marathon, but I finally got back on the trails. I tried out my new trail shoes, and even though my knees still suck, we're kind of working back. So excited. We have a 50K in October in Canyonlands, and so it's like Moab. So getting ready for that. That's all I got really going on.
Sweet. For me, I didn't work this week. Went on a date with Tatum last night, and we went to the movie for 5 minutes, and then she wanted to leave because she didn't like that movie. It was kind of spooky.
Oh, really?
So, yeah. Pretty eventful week.
Also,
just working on the houses.
I was about to say, you're still working just on the houses. When you say you're not working, it makes it sound like you're just unemployed.
Yeah.
But I guess you're doing other jobs. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that looks like a scary movie. But at least you got some good pizza.
Yeah, got some pizza. Pizza.
Well, good. Sounds like not a bad week. As always on Siblings in Crime, this story is true based on real events and real people, but we've kind of filled in some of the gaps for storytelling purposes. All major events and people are grounded in historical facts, but cases like today, taken back in the 1940s, are gonna need a little bit filling in to make it more of a seamless story. So this is rooted in all the facts I could find and creative more for a dramatic effect. Wartime brings a lot of things. Fear, hunger, uncertainty, but also brings opportunity for heroes, for cowards, frankly, for killers. In one Dutch town, death didn't come from the front lines. It came from behind shy smiles. For someone you never think to fear. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Let's roll. Sunlight lingers on cobblestones as two sisters, Freddie and Truus Oversteegen, race their bikes downhill toward the canal. Their laugh echoes off the charming buildings of Harlem. Freddie's hair is in neat braids. Truus's ribbon-tied curls bounce with her grin. And they teach each other about boys and everything that you'd imagine from two young girls. Because at just age 14 and 16, they're too young to understand how quickly the world can change. They spend golden afternoons wandering through local markets and doing everything possible to focus on the beauty that seems so scarce these days. You see, they're in the early 1940s, maybe around 1942-ish, depending on sources, during this time period, when Freddie tugs at Truus's sleeve, pointing at a newsstand where headlines in German starkly highlight the devastation of World War II. They glance away, brushing off fear with uneasy smiles as they ride on. Their mother's voice just behind them, reminding them of who they are and to stay true to what they believe. Her words, although simple, also plant seeds of steel. Even in those early days, something flickers inside of them. Maybe it's hope for change or for a better future. But these thoughts dwindle quickly when a man in uniform passes. Truus notices his boots, his posture. Freddie notices his eyes disappearing behind mirrored sunglasses. And in those details, the first itch of something bigger at hand starts to tighten its grip around these young women. Freddie and Truus make their way to a local bar of sorts, looking for something specific. They are young girls, obviously, but that doesn't really matter during this time period, making their way into a bar. A man immediately catches their eye. He is a soldier, clean uniform, crisp collar, boots that haven't seen a field in days. He isn't local, but he tries to look natural, fit in, and he orders himself a drink. He scans the room as though expecting recognition or maybe admiration. And I always laugh thinking about the soldier stereotype. I feel like it's very much like the pilot soldiers, like the pilot stereotype, thinking they're all cool and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And it seems like that's kind of the vibe that these women are getting from the soldiers in their town. His eyes stop when Truus enters. She's only 16, but there's something magnetic about her. She smiles easily, her hair is done up with a ribbon, and she looks like the kind of girl that soldiers would write letters home about.
Whoa.
Yeah, so she's a cutie patootie.
Young though, right?
Yeah, young.
So maybe,
that's, yeah.
maybe soldiers shouldn't.
Yeah, and that's the thing too, is like, I think about that time period. Age wasn't as big of a deal as it is now. Like our neighbor down the street, she was riding a soldier. She met him when she was 13 and he was like 18. I was like, that seems wildly illegal. She was like, no, it's okay. She wrote him the whole time that he was gone. He gets back. They got married 3 days after he got home from deployment, wherever he was, when she was 16 years old. And I was like, and she's 85 right now. I'm like, I don't think that was normal back then, but she's like, no, it wasn't a big deal. So I'm guessing in the 40s, this wasn't that dramatic as it is these days. But to me, I'm like, oh, that's kind of creepy. He makes his move, introduces himself in stiff Dutch, and immediately tries to turn on the charm. Truus laughs softly with both uneasiness and kind of like a hint of confidence, like she knows what she's doing. Mm-hmm. Her eyes dart to Freddie, her sister, who sits at a distance, flipping through a book. The soldier doesn't seem to notice the younger girl. He only eyes Truus. He asks if she'll join him later for a walk, somewhere quiet or remote. His tone is low but polite in a way that alludes to his real intent, obviously. Truus agrees. She tells him of a place that she's familiar with, actually, and a place that they could be alone and get to know each other. Freddie doesn't speak, but her eyes lift from the page, probably trying to eavesdrop. And the soldier grins to himself as he imagines his plans that he has later for that night.
This guy sounds spooky.
This guy seems weird. As the sun begins to set, the tree line seems to thicken. Truus pedals on her bike, smooth and steady, which also cracks me up because they're like on bikes. They're like little kids. Yeah. I'm like, this seems kind of inappropriate. She gets to her destination, and the man is already sitting in wait. Truus gives a shallow hello and leads the way back down the path, leaving her bike behind. He follows, leaning in to brag about who knows what and just kind of try to hold her close. That's what it seems like. And they enter a clearing where twilight creates a private stage. Time slows. The soldier doesn't hold back as he makes his move on the young girl standing across him. Anxiety begins to creep in Truus, wondering if she made the right decision, bringing this man to a secluded area. Doesn't seem like a smart thing.
Yeah. She's like, oh, crap.
Yeah. But then suddenly...
He's actually a great guy.
And he's a great guy. Then suddenly, a soft shuffle grows closer. Then a click, followed by a gunshot discharge that left the once silent woods ringing. Truus barely keeps her feet, blood splatter coating her perfectly curled hair. Freddie stands, pistol drawn, hair pulled tight, face determined. For a heartbeat, no one moves, until the soldier finally loses his strength, staggers, then collapses dead on the wooded path that he was lured to.
Oh. I think I've heard this before.
Interesting.
Are these the rebel girls or something like that?
Mm-hmm. Truus steps back, now steady. She stares at the man slumped over, moonlight catching the gun's glare. The tremor in Freddie's fingers despite just taking no tremor despite taking a man's life.
Dang, she's savage.
She's savage. She's 14. Keep in mind. She kneels by the body, checks his pulse, and there's nothing. They exchange a look, no tears, no shock, just purpose. They stand, walk away, side by side, back to their bikes that were hidden in the brush, and ride back down the cobblestone to their home where their mother awaits.
Mission accomplished.
Mission accomplished. And just a few evenings later, Freddie, 14-year-old, keep in mind, with her cute little braids, glides into the park at dusk. It had been a warm spring day, nothing out of the usual in the Netherlands, when she notices a woman looking around nervously, kind of checking over her shoulder. I'm getting shoulder and soldier all scrambled up.
Same.
Freddie stops to make small talk and asks the woman her name. The woman relaxes, seeing this young girl with the braids befriending her, and she offers a warm smile and introduces herself. With that information, and without hesitation, Freddie raises her gun and shoots. The lady she just
Freddie's
met
a savage.
staggers back, panic blooming in her eyes, and collapses right then and there.
Maybe I haven't heard this one.
Freddie stands unmoving for a moment, letting the world absorb the gunshot's echo. Then she tucks the pistol away and rides off into the setting sun. Another body, another secret, yet no remorse and no regret, and surprisingly, no fear, because who would suspect a 14-year-old girl with this perfect set of braids? Let's go back a few years. Earlier to 1940, before the killing spree, and take a closer look into the Oversteegen home. This family, that consisted of just a single mom and the two young girls, carried kind of like a warmth and discipline about them. Definitely discipline. They seemed like very structured in their household. According to different reports, I think that the husband, they got divorced over financial issues. It was tough. He left. Some people think that he had passed away in the war, but most things say...
Or Freddie killed him.
Or Freddie went crazy. But most things say that they just got divorced. So, regardless, it's this small home of just 3 women. Their mother was a self-proclaimed devoted communist, reading resistance poetry and teaching her daughters to do the same. But by May of 1940, German troops marched into the Netherlands. Curfews clamped their world, neighbors vanished left and right without a trace, and the war is literally at their doorstep at this point. And this family of 3 are not going to conform. It doesn't take long for whispers to spread that this mother was deeply involved in humanitarian work and the resistance even before the war, reportedly helping Jewish refugees and they were hosting Jewish refugees in their home by the mid-1930s area. And some reports say that these 2 girls gave up their beds and just slept on the floor in order to help these Jewish refugees. So they were their whole life, it seems like they had been involved in some sort of resistance. And by the beginning of 1941, these whispers of what these women were doing reached a whole new group of people. At dusk, a man knocks on their door. Commander Franz von der Wiel from the Raad van Verzet, also known as the Council of Resistance. Way easier for me to say. He had heard rumors of 2 young girls unnoticed on bicycles, capable of blending in. Their mother steps forward, obviously protective, but at the same time, she sees the bigger picture. He outlines missions, delivering messages, propaganda, and sabotage. What he did not tell them at this time was that outside of the sabotaging bridges and railroad lines and all those things, they would also need to learn, in addition, how to shoot, and specifically shoot Nazis. Truus remembers her sister, Freddie, saying, well, that's something I've never done before. I'm like, that's a pretty casual comment from a 14-year-old, just like, oh, okay.
Freddie seems like wild.
Freddie's a savage. She's a beast, but intense. So although these girls were young, the commander soaked that up, of course. He's like, who's going to suspect these girls on bicycles to do such a thing? And these 2 girls would go on to become assassins. True's eyes flash with determination, and Freddie nods along as their mother gives them permission, maybe with hesitation, maybe not, considering how involved she herself is. And she left them with one little phrase of advice. Thank you. I was like, some little noteworthy thing to keep home. It says, you can do this, but stay human. And they kept the stay human mindset throughout their missions. This training became a moral anchor for the girls during their darkest missions. So training began in silence at first. They kind of got like the secret messages on their bicycles, and they had ration cards stitched into coat linings, like all these secretive little things. But then came the sabotage. Their first mission was arson, and after flirting with the SS guards on duty, they burnt down 2 Nazi-occupied warehouses. Like, that's intense. After the success of their first mission, the girls were taken down to a potato shed. I don't know what that is, but a potato shed of some sort.
Holds potatoes.
Evidently. Yeah, I don't know what this is. Somewhere secluded, I assume, because that's where they learned how to shoot. And from then on, they were getting trained to be these assassins. Not for war, according to them, but more for justice. And always with the promise to remember who they were, which was proved to be difficult in an inhumane war. So operation by operation goes on, and they actually become precise. It, surprisingly, didn't take them very long to get a system that worked for them. Truus would ride her little bicycle. We would have Freddie sitting on the back, and as they would just ride by isolated Nazis, Freddie would take out her pistol, do her thing, shoot them dead, and they would just ride on.
Dang.
Isn't that intense?
Yeah.
And they just called it their system. Like, this is just what we do. Truus rides the bike, Freddie's on back, she's the sharpshooter. I don't know if I could do that.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's a different time. They're in war. They feel this is justified. You know, these people are doing horrible things to their people. I don't know. Do you think you can do it?
I don't know. No idea.
Brett and I were actually just talking about something similar the other day. Like, I think I'm probably thinking about all this because of all the talk of World War III and stuff. But he was asking if I would be able to be in the Air Force, like, dropping bombs. And I was like, I think I could. Like, if it was for extreme purposes, like if we need to save America, I feel like I could drop bombs. But hand-on-hand combat, I don't know if I could. Like, I don't know if I could see a face and willingly do something like that.
Yeah, that's true.
What do you think?
I agree. I think and it'd be a lot scarier being hand to hand.
Oh my gosh, yeah. And also just seeing face. I don't think I could see a face before trying to. I don't know. Obviously,
if they're
this
trying
is
to kill me, I could easily kill them.
Right,
too,
and obviously this is different tone. Like, you're in a war. That's one thing.
Yeah.
It's another if you're just like driving by the road or whatever. So innocent people is
they
one
like
thing.
whistle at you and then you shoot them.
Yeah, seriously. Yeah.
Freddie's.
So I don't know if I could do like. Yeah, I just don't think I could do it. Like, for sure not civilians. And actually, that's one code that these girls live by is like, we don't get kids involved, which is crazy because they're kids themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Freddie wasn't the only one who had a good shot, though, because Truus also was practicing just along her sister, the 16-year-old. She actually made an account in a book called Seducing and Killing Nazis.
That's what it's called?
That's what it's called.
Sounds, I mean, not laughing. It just is like exactly what it is.
Yeah.
Seducing and killing Nazis.
Yeah, there's no like creativity.
Yeah.
That's exactly. So she made an account and she said once she was confronted with an SS soldier, a Dutch SS soldier even, who was killing a small baby by hitting it against a wall.
Jeez.
Horrible. He grabbed the baby and obviously hit it against the wall, and the father and sister had to watch nearby.
Dang.
She said that they were obviously hysterical and the child was obviously dead at this point. She says she walked up, shot the guy right then and there, and that it wasn't an assignment, but she doesn't regret it, and she just walked away. Mm-hmm. I was like, oh my gosh, I can't imagine seeing such brutality. And like, I can see where they can muster the confidence to do such killings because you're witnessing the worst things possible. Oh, it makes me sick. So in the spring of 1944, they actually met another woman who was 19 at this point, Haney Shaft. The fiery redhead is what she's known for. She graduated high school and went to study law in 1938 at the University of Amsterdam, and her family was always heavily influenced by politics. They were very much involved in everything. And when Haney went to college, she actually became really good friends with these 2 Jewish kids, which became like her catapult to being extra involved in what's going on with the actions towards Jews during this time period when the Germans came to invade the Netherlands. In 1943, the university students were actually required to sign a Declaration of Allegiance to the occupation authorities. And when Haney refused to sign the petition in support of the occupation forces, like 80% of the other students, they all got released and were not allowed to continue their studies there. Because of this, she returned home, where she would also go on to join the resistance, and that's where she met Freddie and Truus. And the three of them became like their own separate special forces. Like they were the three assassin girls in their own group, and they would each take turns. They would seduce whoever was at the bars. They would put on their makeup, do all the things, get ready, and lure them out to the woods. And that was their regular strategic moves.
Dang, that's pretty intense.
Super intense. Where Freddie and Truus were like kind of hesitant in the beginning to like literally be trained to kill these guys. Not Haney. She was like all for the weapons. And she carried out attacks on Germans, Dutch Nazis, collaborators, traitors, anyone who disagreed kind of with their plan to save their country.
Yeah. Wow.
A lot of confidence. I'd be so scared. Mm-hmm. She even learned how to speak German fluently and became involved with German soldiers. And like I said, would lure them out using their own language. Prior to these traps, she would put on makeup, lipstick, and mascara and style her hair. And while heading off to meet her targets, would call back to the other girls saying, "I'll die clean and beautiful."
Jeez.
That's so brave.
Yeah. She doesn't care.
She doesn't care. She, you can tell that she feels like there is definitely a bigger thing at hand, a bigger purpose than herself. Haney with her noteworthy red hair, came under suspicion, eventually was identified as the girl with red hair. That's actually what I know the story as, the girl with red hair. And when I was trying to think of which case we wanted to do this week, that was like so far back in my memory, and I was like, what was that story? And that's how I came back to it.
Oh.
So she was placed on the Nazis' most wanted list at just 19 years old.
That's crazy.
Because they know that she had been identified. I guess she attempted
to dye her hair.
Yeah, so she attempted to shoot a Nazi and they survived. And so they were able to identify her. And that's when she became on the list and is notably the girl with red hair. But you're right. Yeah. So she's like, okay, I got to go in disguise. Crazy. 19. She dyed her hair black and she started wearing glasses. And I'm like, that sounds like some Scooby-Doo stuff. Like your most basic disguise ever.
But they probably don't have pictures.
Right.
Like surveillance or anything like like if someone's doesn't have red hair, you're just like, oh, it's not her.
Right. And that's like,
it's not like, oh, you matched the picture. You just dyed your hair.
Like her nose is like this and she has like this type of
they'll have to like describe her rather than like have pictures.
Right.
And be like, this
going
is
by
her.
Every single person.
Yeah.
Right. And so, I mean, word of mouth probably was saving her for a while because they could only do so much with identifying her. But she, being the oldest member of the female hit squad, sadly would remain eternally young because she was stopped by the Nazis while at a military checkpoint, and they found the resistance documents concealed in her bag, and she was taken into custody where she was interrogated relentlessly. She was tortured, put in like isolation, everything, and she held her ground.
Hey.
So what gave her up, do you think?
I have no idea. Pictures?
She was there for 3 weeks. And her roots were starting to grow back.
Oh, no.
Yeah, isn't that crazy? So they found out that she was a girl with red hair because her hair started to grow and her red roots were showing, and they identified her as the girl with red hair.
Also, why is she carrying resistance documents going through a checkpoint?
I think that they were like, she had other documents with her too, and there's like they were like, I don't know if they were stitched into the bag or like somewhere trying to hide it. But she was on a mission to bring these documents to other resistance people. So, like, she had to pass that checkpoint.
I see.
She just happened to get searched. Dang. And so then she got caught. And
that's what I always think about Locked Up Abroad. I'm like, dang, they just happened to have, like, the dog walk by that person.
Yeah.
Or, like,
I mean, and that type of stuff, it's
like,
good.
Yeah, selected.
Yeah, like by the chances.
Yeah.
I imagine, though, like if she's on the Nazi most wanted list, they're probably like checking all the girls her age.
Yeah, girls are probably getting checked.
Yeah. And so Haney endured like the 3 weeks of torture before being executed on April 17th, 1945. 2 men that took her out to the execution site. 1 man shot her in the head at close range. However, The bullet only grazed Haney, and she allegedly told her executioners, "I'm a better shot." I'm like, you're freaking so sick. After the first attempt obviously failed to kill her, so the second man stepped up and did finish the job, ending Haney Schaaf's life just 18 days before the Netherlands was liberated.
Oh, man.
I know, she was so close. And I guess during this time period, like, they weren't even supposed to be doing executions anymore because the war was like, they were starting to put in rules, like, we're kind of ending this. And she was like one of the last people that was executed, and it was not even legal because the law came out not to. So sad.
I don't really understand war, like certain rules and stuff.
Yeah.
Like war crimes, like it's kind of crazy.
I'm like, how does everyone abide by that?
I'm sure they don't. That's why they have like war crime trials and stuff, and people get in trouble. A lot of the Nazis. And that's why they all fled to like Argentina and different countries to hide. Okay,
so do you think Hitler got to Argentina, or do you think he was killed?
I don't know. I've heard a lot of conspiracies about that.
I was going to say, I heard the conspiracies, and Mom and I went to Argentina in 2023. And there was a lot of German-influenced towns that we were visiting.
Yeah, it's all the Nazis.
Yeah, exactly. And I was like, so do we think Hitler made it over here? And it doesn't seem like most people believe that Hitler actually made it to Argentina, just the Nazis themselves.
Yeah, there's a lot of like weird stuff about the whole thing though, that people, like if you go down the conspiracy rabbit hole, there's like a lot of weird stuff.
Is there?
Yeah.
I haven't gone down that rabbit hole too much.
But maybe you should next time.
Maybe I should next time.
Next case.
That'd be interesting. Cut back to the forest, where the two girls are on bikes. The man in uniform, the one walk, the one shot, and later the park trader. And eventually came many more deaths. When asked long after the war, Freddie refused to reveal how many men that she had actually killed, saying that you shouldn't ask a soldier how many people they've shot. And because to them, they were just soldiers.
Mm-hmm. They're just doing their job.
And some of the resistance best soldiers at that.
That's crazy.
Truus survived and went to become an artist, actually, a sculptor. She became a public speaker and married a fellow former resistance fighter as well.
Dang.
Yeah.
That's kind of cool.
Truus did everything she could to kind of keep these stories alive in a better light, because they weren't really looked at in a great light when all this came out, as you can imagine. And she did everything she could to have it be recognized that they did all they could to save the Dutch.
Yeah.
And the Jewish refugees and all those type of people, the people who were oppressed. Freddie, on the other hand, she lived a quiet life. She lived with her family. She married a man who was an engineer, and they had 3 kids. She more so was haunted by nightmares. And like from different reports, like it sounds like if PTSD was a thing at the time, they would have both had PTSD. Like they had horrible memories and nightmares and a lot of emotion from these experiences, which, I mean, they were so young. I can't imagine what that does to a person and your brain and your everything.
Yeah.
She did everything she could to remember her mother's role to stay human, but it sounds much harder than it's like the living it is much harder than saying it, obviously. Yeah. She had a son named Remy Decker, and he goes on to say that to her, the war never stopped. She had an internal battles ever since, no matter how liberated they were.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah, so like I said, Truus did all she could to have the Dutch resistance be like a beacon of hope and a story of survival and bravery. It took all her life for their efforts to be recognized as such, considering their communist past. However, in the end, they won their hard-fought battle and was awarded the, I don't even know what this is, Mobilization War Cross in 2014. So they were recognized, cool. By the Dutch Prime Minister, and they got awarded in 2014. They went on to live a full life.
Seems like really late.
Yeah, 2014. They went on to live a full life into their 90s. At least they saw the recognition before they passed, because I know that that haunted them. Mm-hmm. They were teenage assassins, seductive traps, silent shots, framed by survival, but they never gave up on humanity. In their hands, violence was a shield, not a pleasure. They went on to say it was a tragic and very difficult situation and that they cried a lot after. This is from Truus. She said, "We did not feel it suited us. One loses everything. It poisons the beauty that life has to offer. We were no terrorists. We did what we had to do. It was a necessary evil." And that is the story of Freddie and Truus and Haney, the teenage assassins.
Wow, that's cool.
Isn't that crazy?
They need to make a movie about that.
That would be really interesting, actually.
Yeah. It kind of reminded me about a movie I saw. I don't remember the name or what was going on, but there were some soldiers. I think they like crashed their plane or something,
Okay.
and so they were like kind of in enemy territory.
Oh,
but there was like, yeah, they were like they found other Americans. And the Americans were kind of like resistance a little bit, and they would like test the soldiers because there were multiple to make sure that they weren't like trying to infiltrate the resistance, like they were like the enemy infiltrating. So like ask them a bunch of questions about like the Constitution and about like the states.
This is so familiar.
And there was like a friend of one of the guys, and he thought the guy was like American, and then the resistance guy just shot him.
Because he had a cigarette.
Yeah.
I have no idea what the movie is.
I don't either.
If anyone knows that movie, it's going to drive me crazy.
Yeah.
Let us know.
Just like shot him, and the guy was like shocked. He's like a German or something.
Yeah,
he's
like he was using like a German brand or something like that. That is wild.
Yeah.
Because they memorized, like there was like a spy or something. It was like a German spy or something. That they had memorized the Constitution, all these answers when they were interrogated.
Yeah.
And I totally remember that. I have no idea what it is, but maybe we should go back and watch it.
Yeah.
But anyways, that was our quicker case. It was just so fascinating. I kept having it in the back of my head, and I wanted to talk about it. It was just mind-boggling. I don't think I could do that as an adult. I can't imagine at 14 years old. But crazy times. I don't see us going to World War III, so hopefully this doesn't become applicable. But that's all I have for you today. Do you have any
All right, so crazy war crime facts. Unit 731, Japan, World War II. Japan's Unit 731 conducted live human experiments, including vivisections, I don't know what that means, without anesthesia, biological weapon testing, and frostbite experiments on civilians and prisoners.
Brett actually said that we should do a case one of these days of the human science experiments.
Yeah.
Like, that is so disturbing. Like, my in-laws just went to Germany, and they went to like one of those places, like a hospital type, where they were doing like human experiments, and they said it was like the grossest feeling. Like they heard all these stories. Like it's traumatizing.
Jeez.
Just even hearing the stories. So I don't know if we'll go that dark, but
listen to this. Members of that unit were granted immunity by the United States in exchange for their research data.
Yeah, horrible.
Yeah, that's crazy.
That's diabolical.
All right, cannibalism by Japanese soldiers. In Papua New Guinea, some Japanese troops were documented committing acts of cannibalism against Allied prisoners of war and even their own soldiers due to starvation. They were not isolated incidents, and many were tried post-war for crimes against humanity.
Dang, that's disturbing.
Yeah. Stalin's order number 227, no one stepped back. Soviet soldiers caught retreating during World War II could be executed by their own officers.
Crazy.
Yeah.
One step back, goodbye.
Yeah. Barrier troops were placed behind the front lines to shoot retreating comrades. An estimated 150,000 Soviet soldiers were killed by their own side.
Holy smokes, that's wild.
Yeah.
Dang, that's sad, kind of.
Yeah. Nazi blood experiments at... I don't know how to say that word. But prisoners were forced to drink seawater, have their blood replaced with incompatible types, or be placed in freezing conditions to test hypothermia. Many subjects died or suffered irreversible trauma.
Sounds like the medical experiments we just talked about.
Yeah. And then Nepal and Agent Orange in Vietnam. The U.S. used these chemical weapons extensively. Agent Orange led to severe birth defects, cancer, and ecological destruction, effects still seen today.
That's sad.
Yeah.
I feel like you see that so often. Something happens and like way down the road you're like, this is all a factor of one thing.
Yeah. My Lai massacre, Vietnam War, 1968. U.S. soldiers killed 500 unarmed Vietnamese citizens, mostly women, children, and elderly, during a raid in My Lai. The incident the incident was covered up for a year, and only one soldier, Lieutenant William Cowley, was convicted, served 3.5 years under house arrest.
That's a very bad look for the United States.
Yeah.
That's too bad.
It's crazy only one person.
And house arrest, 3 years, that's like nothing.
Yeah.
That's really sad. It's crazy what people do for war and what they're commanded to do.
Yeah.
So it's crazy hearing people like these girls joining a resistance when it's like, it's so easy to just go with the crowd and do whatever you're told, but it takes a special type to be brave.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I just was so fascinated by the story, and I wanted to do a little bit something different with 1940s war. Thought that would be kind of a different spin. But thank you for tuning in this week. We'll be back next week with another episode of Siblings in Crime.
Thank you.